Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Okay, so oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Violation of the first 10 points of the Nuremberg Code that says the voluntary consent of the subject must be voluntary, or the consent of the human subject must be voluntary. Whatever says it must be consensual, voluntarily. The term statistical record means a record in a system of records maintained for statistical research, and that's the Bureau of Vital Statistics, and that is the state's vital statistics jurisdiction that is created on that graph that we viewed here not too long ago. Let me pull that up for people that aren't familiar with it. And this is vital records and vital statistics in the United States, uses, users, systems, and sources of revenue. Vital records and vital statistics in the states, they're in the United States, current birth registration process for A, which is a singular, an individual, state vital records jurisdiction, and its Bureau of Vital Statistics. So again, or reporting purposes only, and not used in whole or in part in making any determination about an identifiable individual, except as provided by Section 8 of Title 13. That's the census. The term routine use means, with respect to the disclosure of a record, the use of such record for a purpose which is compatible with the purpose for which it was collected. Statistical and reporting purposes. Oops. Reporting. Sounds like exports and imports. Again, commercial. The term matching program means any computerized comparison of two or more automated systems of records or a system of records with non-federal records for the purpose of establishing or verifying the eligibility of or continuing compliance with statutory and regulatory requirements by applicants for recipients or beneficiaries of, participants in, or providers of services with respect to cash or in-kind assistance or payments under federal benefit programs, or recouping, such as in coupons, payments, or delinquent debts under such federal benefit programs. Again, 42 U.S. Code 2000D. Prohibition against, exclusion from, participation in, denial of, benefits of, and discrimination under federally assisted programs on ground of race, color, or national origin. Anytime, all glory goes to him. Greetings, everybody. Greetings, everybody. Thanks for joining. Lenny Malley, Professional 3-Bear, Ermias T, everybody else, greetings. Thanks for supporting us. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. So we go back to it. 2 or more automated federal personnel or payroll systems of records, or a system of federal personnel or payroll records with non-federal records. That sound like banking institutions, financial institutions, depository institutions. We're going to read about them too, folks. Let's see, what else? Is there anything else I wanted to do? I think that was the end of that.
So what do you think, Keith? If it was a head to the snake locally, that would be the holder of that SS-16, wouldn't it, who filed that?
Yeah.
Who is that individual?
That's that military commissioner. Didn't you say it was Jared? Master Commissioner. That's the guy that's working with the birth clerk and the county registrar.
So that's the human trafficker right there in the heart of the communities.
Right. But they don't know
part of it.
Right, but they don't know it. Again, they've never taken down the time to study this stuff like I have. Very few people have.
Well,
I guarantee you.
There's one in general that's got no excuse because I've been calling. So I've tried to communicate with the one there in Carrollton, and they have a lot of control there, obviously.
Right. Yeah, Lenny Malley, they give you a birth certificate. What does a ship do when it docks? It comes into birth. Yeah, that's that United States vessel, 18 U.S.C. 9, under 18 U.S.C. 8, obligations and other securities of the United States, and under 18 U.S.C. 7, in special maritime territorial transactions. That's that Master Commissioner. He's got to commission it as a vessel of the United States for tax purposes under the special maritime territorial jurisdiction so that it can fall within the lines of the obligation and other security of the United States. That's all it is. It's a commercial venue.
What do you think the chances are that most of those in that position are of the opposite sex?
I'm sure there's many, and I really don't care for that, but it goes to Leviticus 25, verse 44. Let me pull that up for everybody. Leviticus 25, 44. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids. So I don't care if they're male or female. They're heathens. Okay? Which thou shalt have shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondsmaids. So just like any other good slave, you're supposed to treat them well because you want them to work for you for a long time. You want them to get good at it. You want them to take good instruction from you. Hope that makes sense to you guys. Because I ain't playing around no more. I'm not the slave. They are, and they will get this. They will, one day or another. Let's see here. Looking. Yeah, I don't think there was much else in here I wanted to look at. I gotta cruise it just to be sure. criminal penalties. Any officer or employee of an agency who by virtue of his employment or official position has possession of or access to agency records which contain individually identifiable information, the disclosure of which is prohibited by this section or by rules or regulations established thereunder. Or who knowing... Say what?
You're not sharing.
My apologies. Thank you. And who, knowing that disclosure of the specific material is so prohibited, willfully discloses the material in any manner to any person or any agency not entitled to receive it, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and fined not more than $5,000. That's your small claims court for if they ask me for ID. Okay? Understand, folks. If they ask me for ID, I don't have any. Well, what's your name? Well, I don't have one of those either. You're looking for a name and a number of an individual, right? Or at least a name of an individual? Well, yeah, I'm looking for your name. Well, I don't have a name. The individual's got a name, and it was attached to a number. It identifies the record. I've been called Keith all my life, and I can change what I prefer to be called. And I'm telling you, you don't call me Keith. You call me Master. You don't like it? Kiss my ass. You take my first name that is on that document,
We're on it. We're going.
and you connected it with the family name,
Master time.
or excuse me, the given name, and you connected it with a family name and made a legal name. I know the difference. I'm not going to give you the legal name. That's the individual you're looking for, not me. Now, if they turn around and use that and misapply that information in anything, it's a $5,000 suit, small claims. If I can push that through the small claims, guess what? Now I've got a criminal conviction I can go after in the upper courts for a tort.
I love my name, so I use my name.
I ain't playing games.
You say you're this, but they own our name. So you say, oh,
That's if I wanted to go to that venue. Again, I urge everybody to deal with equity. So let's continue on. Yeah, they're all 5,000. And it says, and any officer or employee of an agency who willfully maintains a system of records without meeting the notice requirements shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, 5,000. Any person who knowingly or willfully requests or obtains any record concerning an individual from an agency under false pretenses shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and fined not more than $5,000. So he has to be able, in order to avoid this one with somebody like me, they have to be able to avoid the fact that I'm going to bring in the negotiable instrument and that he was in fact trying to negotiate commercial terms, which is a false pretense. I didn't give him consent to use my information for commercial terms anywhere. And every last one of these operate in commerce, not private. Got some general exemptions, Each agency record which is accepted by the Archivist of the United States. My record is not supposed to go into the United States with my private information or anything. I can agree to a statistical record if they want, but they would have to correct that statistical record and remove the resident, citizen, and all that, and relate it to a American. It would need a correction. Variance from categorical pre-treatment standards that are fundamentally different in nature. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's nothing else. Well, let's take a look at the effect of other laws. No agency shall rely on any exemption contained in Section 552 of this title to withhold from an individual any record which is otherwise accessible to such individual under the provisions of this section. Well, again, like we've mentioned before, they're required to assist us and we can ask them anything in that record. Anything. Data integrity boards. There you go. Data integrity board. There's one. Data in each agency conducting or participating in matching programs shall establish a data integrity board to oversee and coordinate among the various components of such agency. That goes to the ethical standards board too. Data integrity is the ethics of making sure that the record's integrity is upheld.
Again, that would be that master commissioner, wouldn't it?
He's the one that's got to make sure everything's accurate before it gets entered.
Right, and he's the receiver of the funds.
Management and budget responsibilities. The director of the Office of Management and Budget shall develop and, after notice and opportunity for public comment. See, they're telling you, you have the ability to comment. You don't need to vote, folks. Just give them public comments and let them know where the record is wrong or needs to be adjusted. Applicability to Bureau of Consumer Financial Protection. That Bureau of Vital Statistics, again, is regulated by the Department of Commerce, and that is the purpose for which those records are created, along with the experiment and reporting. And that is what the reporting is. It's a commercial practice. Imports and exports. So let's look at the next one. 5 CFR 5.1, Civil Service Regulations. The Director, Office of Personnel Management shall promulgate and enforce regulations necessary to carry out the provisions of the Civil Service Act and the Veterans Preference Act. So you got Civil Service Act and you got Veterans Preference Act. One is talking about civil servants, the other one is talking about selective service. As reenacted in Title V, United States Code, the Civil Service rules and all other statutes and executive orders imposing responsibilities on the office. Office of Personnel Management. The director is authorized whenever there are practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships in complying with the strict letter of the regulation to grant a variation from the strict letter of the regulation if such a variation is within the spirit of the regulations. And the efficiency of the government and the integrity of the competitive service are protected and promoted. Whenever a variation is granted, the director shall note the official record to show the particular practical difficulty or hardship involved, what is permitted in place of what is required by regulations, the circumstances which protect or promote the efficiency of the government and the integrity of the competitive service, and a statement limiting the application of the variation to the continuation of conditions which gave rise to it. In other words, it's going to be an individual limitation. We can get the hardships resolved and make remedy for me, but that remedy can't be carried on to somebody else. Okay? Like variations shall be granted whenever like conditions exist. So I can help you with your grant by creating your variation if you have the same like conditions. This is the purpose of coming together and resolving our own issues. All such decisions and information concerning variations noted in the official record shall be published promptly in a federal personnel manual letter or bulletin and in the director's next annual report. As this is why we need to come forth as Americans. You see very little mentioned in these codes about Americans, and we have to be able to create the variations, because there are variations from categorical pre-treatment standards that are fundamentally different in nature. An American is not the same as a United States citizen. Neither is a resident. Neither is a tenant. Neither is an occupant. Neither is a dweller. Neither is an itinerant. Those are all commercial purposes. The next one I've got set up is 12 U.S. Code 1813. I wanted to talk to you about this real quick because this is the definition of deposit that we're going to look at, both in the code and the Code of Federal Regulations. Now notice they're going to be almost identical. There's going to be a slight difference. And so we're going to go ahead and read definition of deposit here. But first we're going to go through and we're going to read some of these other definitions, because this is where the depository institutions and bank and all that is going to come into play. The term bank means any national bank and state bank and any federal branch and insured branch. Includes any former savings bank. The term state bank means any banking association, trust company, savings bank. Notice there's one blue line highlight. It's not separated, and it does not include trust. It just says company, comma, savings bank, comma. And it only gives you savings bank. Oh, maybe there is a separation. Yeah, I don't see it, but generally you can see a separation there. Industrial bank or similar depository institution. So a bank is a depository institution, which the board of directors finds to be operating substantially in the same manner as an industrial bank or other banking institution, which is engaged in the business of receiving deposits other than trust funds, as defined in this section. So we go down and we see deposit. It says deposit means 12 U.S.C. 1813 L. So we'll see that in section L down below. L, deposit. The unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business and for which it is given or is obligated to give credit, either conditionally or unconditionally, to a commercial, checking, savings, time, or thrift account, or which is evidenced by its certificate of deposit, thrift certificate, investment certificate, certificate of indebtedness, or other similar name, or a check or draft drawn against a deposit account and certified by the bank or savings association, or a letter of credit or traveler's check on which the bank or savings association is primarily liable. Remember, folks, I said there's contracts out there already, and they have a primary liability. They're passing on a liability to you as a secondary obligor, and you're accepting it. You have to fix that. That's the problem. You're taking on an obligation and you're not supposed to. You're becoming a secondary obligor, and they're passing off all of the obligations and liabilities onto you. Provided that without limiting the generality of the term money or its equivalent, any such account or instrument must be regarded as evidencing the receipt of the equivalent of money when credited or issued in exchange for checks or drafts or for a promissory note upon which the person obtaining any such credit or instrument is primarily or secondarily liable. Now you know why you have to qualify that signature. They are taking and placing the liability on you by placing the qualification that they are the beneficiary of the rights, titles, and interest in the property because you took on the primary liability. When actually you're only a secondary obligor. You gave them an obligor number or a number that they could change to an obligor after you signed, and that gave them the rights, titles, and interest of using any number that is relative to it, including a conversion. Or for a charge against a deposit account, or in settlement of checks, drafts, or other instruments, negotiable instruments, forward to such bank or savings association for collection. Okay, so let's take a look at the next definition of deposit from the CFR, which is 12 CFR 204.2. And it says almost the same thing in a lot shorter. It says the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a depository institution. Wait a minute. Received by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business. Depository institution in the usual course of business and for which it has given or is obligated to give credit, either conditionally or unconditionally to an account. Remember the sales agreement. Customer agrees to make third-party payments so long as credit is given to the customer's account. So as soon as I deposited that signature or put that signature on there and gave it back to them and they deposited in their depository institution, they are now obligated to give credit if they haven't already done so. It fulfilled the terms of the contract, including interest credited, or which is evidenced by an instrument on which the depository institution is primarily liable. It's their record, and they have to provide for the integrity. So let's go back and look. Is engaged in the business of receiving deposits other than trust funds as defined in this section, and is incorporated under the laws of any state, which means you have to be incorporated under the laws of the United States, or which is operating under the Code of Law for District of Columbia, including any cooperative bank or other unincorporated bank, the deposits of which were insured by the corporation on the day before August 9th, 1989. Saving association means a federal saving association. No way around it, folks. They can't escape the federal government. The federal government is the only access and is all administrating the banking affairs of the individuals under the administration of the common law courts. Any state savings association, any corporation other than a bank that the board of directors and the comptroller of currency jointly determine to be operating in substantially the same manner as a savings association. And
I don't see what you're reading on the screen, Keith. That's good. There you go.
And so by acting in a similar fashion as a banker, thinking you know how to bank, and you take everything to a banker and you put it in their deposit accounts, their depository institution, but you don't qualify it right because you're not a banker and you don't know how to bank. Banking is the passing or reporting of information. Nothing more, nothing less. In so doing, they are making a commercial profit off of that information. That is where the money comes from, folks. Federal Savings Association means any federal savings association or federal savings bank. State Savings Association means any building and loan association, saving and loan association, or homestead association. Any cooperative bank, other than a cooperative bank, which is a state bank, which is organized and operating according to the laws of the state, as defined in subsection A3, in which it is chartered or organized. Definitions relating to depository institutions. Term depository institution means any bank or savings association. So they're synonymous. So even though we saw a difference in the definitions of 12 U.S.C. 1813 and 12 CFR 204.2, they actually mean the same thing. Insured depository institution means any bank or savings association, the deposits of which are insured by the corporation, pursuant to this chapter. Institutions included for certain purposes. The term insured depository institution includes uninsured branch or agency of a foreign bank, and as long as you keep acting like an agent, an officer or an agent, as a resident, you're going to be considered as a foreign bank, uninsured, and you're instituted into the same thing. You guys see that? Or a commercial lending company owned or controlled by a foreign bank. They're all synonymous terms, folks. Remember 5 CFR, what was it? 575.102. Federal government means all entities of the government of the United States. That citizen is an entity of the government of the United States. And as long as you keep professing it the way you are without qualifying it and bringing the interest of the United States into the picture, you're going to be caught up in all of the drama and all of the obligations, all of the liabilities, and you already know you have a responsibility of educating yourself. Ain't no one else going to do it. Yes, it's a rescission of the signature as a general deposit to be re-signed or reassigned as a special deposit. So let's see, what else? The next one I've got is 12 U.S.C. 614, Organization Certificate Acknowledgement Forwarding to filing and approval by Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System permit to do business. Body corporate. Name. Deal. Corporate succession. Contracts. Suits. Directors. Officers. Employees. Bylaws. If you don't have this, and they know it, they know as a banker that you're not a Federal Reserve agent nor incorporated to handle those instruments, and therefore by when a banker gives you those instruments, you are committing a crime by accepting them without knowing. And the banker has plausible deniability because he's just doing his job and he didn't know. Pretty wild out there, pretty wild.
You can't make this shit up.
Nope. Yeah, that's what you're doing is you're depositing an instrument with your signature on it. That's a deposit. You're depositioning it. So let's go to the next one. The one we spoke about the other night. 15 U.S.C. 1601, Congressional Findings and Declaration of Purpose. And 15 U.S. Code. 15 U.S. Code relates to trust. How do we know 15 U.S. Code relates to trust? Because when we look up 15 U.S.C. 1, oops. It says trusts, etc., in restraint of trade illegal, penalty. And again, that's in restraint of trade is illegal. It's prohibited to exclude Americans from participation in federal assistance programs. It's the same wording. Says the same thing in different words. So let's go back and look at 15 U.S.C. 1601, Congressional Findings and Declaration of Purpose, Informed Use of Credit, the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent in credit. And again, it's a credit card, plate, coupon book, or any device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. The Congress finds that economic stabilization would be enhanced and the competition among the various financial institutions and other firms, and we're going to show you this one here in a minute, and other firms engaged in the extension of consumer credit. That's that obligation to give or have given credit. It's a credit extension. Would be strengthened by the informed use of credit. The informed use of credit results from an awareness of the cost thereof by consumers. It is the purpose of this subchapter to assure, not insure or ensure, but assure a meaningful disclosure of credit terms so that the consumer will be able to compare more readily the various credit terms available to him and avoid the uninformed use